in those years, he had as many top 100 songs as Springsteen did. Loverboy had 8. Night Ranger had 8. Thompson Twins had 7. Toto had 7. Van Halen had 7. And Donnie and the guys, 9. When they were working at the height of their powers with incredibly limited resources, they fielded a very competitive project. And if you like rock and roll, if you like classic rock, if you like power pop, for my money, they are the great undiscovered 1980s rock band.
We're totally booked.
Rock and roll!
Well, I think I'll leave you to your reading.
Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
Rock and roller!
We are totally booked.
Everybody, welcome back to Booked on Rock, the podcast for those about to read and rock. I'm Eric Senich. Before we get started, make sure you head to bookedonrock.com or check the link in the show notes to get 15% off classic rock merchandise at oldglory.com.
It's a steal.
It's a steal.
If you don't do it, it's like you're losing money.
Hell yeah, man. You get some cool merch. Use the code Booked on Rock. You might, I don't know, maybe there's a few t-shirts, Donnie Iris t-shirts in there. Maybe there's a few DX Ferris t-shirts in there. Who knows? Our guest, our returning guest.
A backlog of Suburban Metal Dad t-shirts that a lot of people that I thought were my friends said they would buy and did not.
I've gotten that, like, oh no, man, I'm gonna head on there. I'm gonna get some of your merch. Oh, cool. Oh yeah, I'll get to it. But yeah, man, it's great to have you back on. We wanted to do this episode. You sent me this. This is the collector's edition of the book on Donnie Iris, the story of Donnie Iris and the Cruisers. And there it is. It's the black and gold copy.
Yeah, you can only get it at live shows.
Yeah, man. This means a lot to me because I'm a diehard Steelers fan. I'm from Connecticut, but
as you
the
should
Steelers
be.
are my team.
As you should be. I am attired in black and gold today in honor of not only Donnie Iris, the classic rock and power pop king of Pittsburgh, but also, if you're into this kind of thing, the Roberto Clemente documentary is now available for purchase on Amazon and Apple TV. And
really?
Freaking stellar.
This is
like
a brand new one?
$13. Yeah, it's the brand new one. It is produced by LeBron James, executive produced, and Richard Linklater of Dazed and Confused, Everybody Wants Some fame, Van Halen connection for you right there. And it's good. It'll make you cry every possible way, like out of joy, out of pride, out of sadness. It's incredible. So get that. We're talking Pittsburgh. What the documentary is about, I mean, they nailed the sports stuff, obviously, but the documentary is about a man who excels as a human being. It's about human accomplishment, not just being an excellent sports guy. If you are remotely inclined, I'm giving this one the Ferris money back guarantee, which I have been offering for 20 years, and I've never had to actually pony up the cash. But if you get it and you don't like it, I'll give you your money back. It's that damn good.
It's that damn good. Yeah, I'm going to check it out. My brother's a huge Pirates fan. All right, so let's talk about this one now. This is one of Pittsburgh's greats, Donnie Iris. What drew you personally? What drew you to Donnie Iris as a subject for an entire book?
Well, I am from Pittsburgh, where they put classic rock in the water the way that most towns do fluoride and such. So I grew up listening to, when I started listening to the radio, the bands on the radio were Van Halen, there's Rush, Tom Sawyer was a single, so much good stuff. And Donnie Iris and the Cruisers were on the radio. And I grew up in Pittsburgh, so of course Donnie Iris and the Cruisers were on the radio. But compared to Van Halen, compared to Rush, compared to all these all-time great bands, I never thought that Donnie Iris was lesser than those guys. I don't think I even knew he was local at the time. I just thought, here's these 4, 5, 6 great bands. And some of them went on to outpace him a little bit, but in the years of 1980 through 1983, 84, when they had a major label affiliation, the Cruisers were putting up competitive numbers against all those bands.
And the song Leah stood the test of time. That is still played on the radio. Also, he had Love Is Like a Rock, which is one of my favorites.
Yes. And if That's the Way Love Ought to Be is not on your list, then check that shit out.
I'll check it out.
You need that. You need that in your life.
Yeah, his best of is on Spotify, and I believe a few albums are on there too.
Yeah, the best of more recent independent one, and the Christmas album, which is a stone cold classic.
I saw that.
Sgt. Pepper of Christmas albums, if you like Christmas music, which I do.
Cool. Yeah, chapter 2 is titled Meet Donnie Iris. So let's do that. I always love the songs, but now I love him even more because he's a diehard Steelers fan, which is great. And he bleeds black and gold.
He does.
Yeah, you're right. Quote, but he's not from Pittsburgh in the strictest downtown zip code 15222 sense of the term.
Well, in the other side, I'm told there's another side of the state. I don't know. I haven't spent much time there, but I'm told there's an area called Philadelphia on the more easterly side.
I've heard of it.
And over there, they are kind of snobbish, if I understand correctly, about whether you are from Philly or quote unquote from Philly. You've probably seen those demographics and memes over the years. But Pittsburgh is all inclusive. If you are generally from the Pittsburgh area within driving distance, it counts. You're Pittsburgh. So I grew up in the sticks, maybe 45 minutes south, but it still counts as Pittsburgh. So Donnie's a little bit north. He's not a downtown kind of guy, but most of us Pittsburghers who talk like this a little bit, we ain't from all the way downtown neither.
What town is it that he was born in?
Beaver Falls.
Beaver Falls.
Beaver area, yeah. Beaver, and he settled down in a place called Elwood City a little bit later.
Right.
And, much to his credit, there's so many interesting little wrinkles to his career. When Donnie started making money and being a famous rock star and appearing on MTV, he did not buy a big house in the suburbs. All the things that he did not do are so remarkable. So he grew up where he grew up and he stayed where he grew up and he likes it there.
His real name isn't Donnie, by the way.
Yeah, but it's the only thing that anybody has called him. His real name, and pardon me if I'm botching this, is Dominic Irachi.
You'll see
it's pronounced closer to Iris.
On the Jaggerz and Wild Cherry records, you'll see that name. That's him.
Right. Yeah.
What were his childhood years like?
He's very much, he's the kind of old school Italian guy that you don't really see him like that a lot anymore, real loving family, real close knit. A lot of things that people would think are stereotypical apply to him, but it's just that it was that kind of family. His dad didn't push him to be successful, but his mom really taught him music. She had him singing in front of people at the age of 4, and he has not stopped. It's almost 80 years later. This week is Donnie Iris's birthday, we should say. 83. Happy
83.
birthday,
and he still goes out and performs from time to time.
He does.
Sounds amazing. I saw a clip on YouTube.
He does. The band, I forget if it was 2 or 3 years ago, maybe his 80th birthday. This band that is over 45 years old at this point had their biggest concert ever. They sold out a venue that held like 5,000 in Pittsburgh, Big Donnie Iris birthday party. So he's not part of the everyday fabric of the city necessarily, but he is still a very big deal around here. As I say in the book, every city has somebody like Donnie Iris, somebody like Tommy Conwell in Philly. It's the blues band in Washington, D.C. It's Nighthawks, Mother's Finest in Atlanta. But the point is that he's one of these people, like the Cincinnati Bengals. If you're from Cincinnati, it's a big deal. 5 hours away, not such a big deal. It's hard to find a lot of fans.
Well, and that happened a lot back in the day. Local radio stations could break these bands locally. Now it's a different layout in terms of corporate radio. So the stations sound the same pretty much wherever you go if it's owned by the same company.
That I think is one of the wonderful things about this story. It is a throwback to a time when you could simply make a good record, really put your heart into it, and there was a chance it could get played on radio, and if it was received well in Pittsburgh, it could break nationally. And it did. It's this story in so many ways documents facets and parts and periods of America that just are not there anymore. And Donnie and the Cruisers is just such a classic example of guys going, let's put on a show and see who shows up and who likes it. And some people did and do.
What made the Pittsburgh music scene such fertile ground for musicians like Donnie?
Pittsburgh And Cleveland, they in to a even I think let me think how to say this.
Like New Jersey?
I'm
It's
in
like
Akron. And Akron is close to Cleveland, but people from Akron would not say they're from Cleveland in the way that somebody like me says we're from Pittsburgh. But all of these areas that we now know as the Rust Belt are, really, you had a lot of boomers coming up in the scene. You have a lot of immigrant parents. To use it in the loose sense of the term, the work ethic is strong. And these people are not in the hippest metropolises in the entire world. So people from Akron, people from Pittsburgh, people at Cleveland at a certain point realized that if anything was going to happen good and awesome and fun, they were going to have to take personal responsibility for it. You couldn't just rely on people coming to entertain you like you could in New York City or Los Angeles. Like if you wanted to see a show, you had to take some personal responsibility for that.
Before we get to his band, the Cruisers, let's talk about Pittsburgh's number one band for 10 years, the Jaggerz. This is where Donnie wrote his way into the national spotlight with the song The Rapper in 1969. Tell us about the band. And yes, there is a Rolling Stones connection here to the name, which had two variations on the spelling.
Yes, I mean, Donnie, to give a little bit of context for it, Donnie had top 100 singles with not one, not two, but three different bands over the course of 19 years, damn near 3 decades. His first single, which was kind of a number one hit, kind of a number two. There's a lot of these weird distinctions in the Donnie story. Jaggerz are this fascinating band to me. There are recordings of them singing the standard Old Man River, the show tune. They recorded a record with Gamble and Huff, the Philly Soul Rock and Roll Hall of Fame sensations. A couple of them went to Woodstock. They started off as a very much Beatles inspired, the kind of band you see in the movie That Thing You Do, just local guys having a good time, signing up to play a club at the beach for the summer, that kind of band. So they went through all these different phases where they were just Beatles kind of guys and they turned into a show band, and then they went hippie for a while, and then they went back to being a show band. They had a real not Svengali of a manager, but a guy that really honed their showbiz chops. And out of it all comes this single, The Rapper, that was number one on one chart and number two on the other chart. That I guess you could call it a novelty single, but their artistic reach and accomplishments go so much deeper than that. It's interesting.
And the Mick Jagger connection, who came up with that?
I forget which one, but Mick Jagger, who has been a name for as long as any of us can remember, probably our grandparents too. The Jaggers, the actual term Jagger was a reference to one of the many obscure Pittsburgh colloquialisms. Most people would call them thorns, but in Pittsburgh, when we talk about walking through the woods, walking through the creek, as many people would say creek, we talk about being beset by jaggers, being brushed by thorns. And Jaggerz with an S seemed like it had a good double entendre to it, a reference to the rock and roll great, also to the Pittsburgh term Jagger. And eventually the legal people got nervous about it and had them change it from Jaggerz with an S to Jaggerz with a Z.
The Rapper, Donnie told you the story behind The Rapper and what inspired it. What's the story?
The role that Donnie plays in his career is super interesting. He does not write a lot, but when he picks up a pen, lightning strikes. He was not the primary songwriter in the band. He was not the primary singer in the band even, but one night, I mean, so many artists have a story like this. He wakes up and he has an idea for a song. So he grabs something and writes it all down. And they go in, they record it. Sounds good. Next thing you know, it's a runaway smash single. about a kind of guy that doesn't exist anymore. Well, I suppose they still exist. A pickup artist, a guy that would make his way through the world just schmoozing women, throwing cheesy lines at them. Hey, babe, what'll
he
it
had
be?
the rap. I got
Coffee or tea or me. He had the rap. So before there were rappers, there were rappers.
Yeah, they were on the label Styx was on at one time, Wood Nickel.
Yeah, their career intersects with so many big name people.
Yeah, that was the pre-famous hit making Styx.
Yeah.
The Wood Nickel years, which they've got some cool music on Wood Nickel. But yeah, they were on that label, and then they played their final show on January 17th, 1976. Donnie on his own, and you write, Donnie didn't know it as the famous Jaggerz were crumbling. The creative and business team that would guide him through the rest of his career was drifting toward him. What happens after the Jaggerz, and how does this next gig lead to the Wild Cherry period?
Well, after the Jaggerz, he spends some years in the wilderness just trying to figure out what he wants to do next. And eventually, to earn a paycheck, he connects with a band called Wild Cherry that we all know best as the Play That Funky Music band. And at that point, the band had already been joined by an up-and-coming young musician named Mark Avsek. And that's one of the really super interesting parts about the Donnie Iris saga. When you talk about the music of Donnie Iris, you're actually talking about a creative partnership between Donnie Iris and his band leader, producer, songwriter, Mark Avsek.
Yeah, he's huge. Never knew about this guy. And I wonder how that made him feel, because Donnie Iris took the lion's share of the credit.
He's absolutely like that. I mean, they have you can't compare the exact relationship to Steven Tyler, Joe Perry, but it's one of those great rock and roll pairings where the two of them just complement each other so well. Donnie is not, and again, the biggest hit Donnie Iris ever had, he wrote. So I'm not discounting his creative powers, but he doesn't write that much. And then in Mark Avsek, he found somebody that wrote constantly, but didn't want to be in the spotlight. So Donnie is a great singer for Mark's lyrics.
Oh, so worked out perfectly.
Yeah, and I'll tell you about who, I think this is a great detail about who Mark Avsek is as a person. And it also sort of dovetails in with their management, which is such a compelling story. The management was Mike Belkin out of Cleveland. He was one of those guys like, Bill Graham was the epitome of it, but he was the guy that he and his brother owned concerts in Cleveland. They were concert promoters. And they managed bands too. And were they great at it? Well, we can argue that point. In some ways, no, in some ways, certainly. But one of the bands that he managed was Wild Cherry, when they had written this new song called Play That Funky Music that sounded pretty good. So this is what I love about Mark. They were about to form a band and really go on a run after this hot song that they had in the hopper that they were going to release. So they take Mark into the band and they say, here's this song, Play That Funky Music. We think it's good. What would you do with it? And Mark, to his credit, listens to it and goes, nothing. I wouldn't touch it. It's perfect like it is. And that's the kind of guy that Mark is. Like, he doesn't have to have his fingerprints on everything. He doesn't have to have his name on it. He doesn't have to have the writing credit. He just wants to do the work and make the music. So when a lot of people would have gone in and tinkered with that perfectly alchemized single, he said, no, just leave it alone.
Extremely rare in the music business.
Yeah, extreme.
I mean, in an ego-driven business.
Yeah, and so they Donnie later joined the band. They went to the band Wild Cherry late in their career, went to Muscle Shoals, hoping to make a great record. They were thinking that the music there might somehow rub off on them. And it did not for Wild Cherry, but while they were there, Donnie and Mark had this real kind of musical love affair where they realized, like, wow, not only do I like this guy, like, we can really do good work together. So while that record that Wild Cherry recorded there was not a hit, it springboarded these guys into a career that nearly 50 years later is still going on.
Out from that came the Cruisers.
Out from that came the Cruisers.
All right. How did they round out the rest of the lineup?
It's quite a lineup. And what I say in the book is, a lot of people have had comparable careers to the Cruisers. Again, the book to me reminds me of the band in That Thing You Do. Just a bunch of guys getting together, making music, going on a run around the merry-go-round and seeing how far it goes. But these guys have stayed together and accomplished a lot of really neat things. So Donnie hits with 3 different bands. Mark, he cut his teeth in bands including Breathless, led by Jonah Coslin, who was one of the guys who was instrumental in the Michael Stanley band, no pun intended. But drummer Kevin Valentine, tremendously talented guy, one of the many guys in the band who went on to a remarkable second career. It's only just now in recent years coming out that he was the studio drummer for Kiss through the 90s.
Isn't that wild, man? That's so cool. And I knew that name as soon as I saw it. He's on Psycho Circus, I think.
Yeah, he played on a couple tracks on, I forget the first album, but as the 90s went on, he started off as a tech, and then he played on a couple tracks. Then the next time out, he played on a couple more. And on Psycho Circus, he plays as much as you can while still being able to say, well, yeah, Peter Criss is on the album. It's all the original guys.
Although I think he may be on like all but 1 or 2 tracks.
Yeah, so he's on like everything except 1 or 2, but there's just enough to say, well, yeah, Peter Criss is on it.
Right. I think Into the Void has Peter, and also the other one, which You Wanted the Best, You Got the Best, that song. I think Peter's on that one.
Yeah, so Kevin's an accomplished drummer. He played with Sam Kinison's rock and roll band.
Wow.
He did so many interesting things. He's produced Graham Bonnet, did some work with Slash. Super talented guy. The original bassist, Al Britton McLean, enigmatic guy, multi-talented threat. The guy that's been their bassist now for so long is Paul Goll, who was really there for some things. He was there in the California scene of the 60s, just watching people like eat acid and have meltdowns and wander off into Venice Beach.
He's got
And
the
he
stories.
didn't really succeed in that scene, but he got involved in a very different kind of career, and the music came back to him. And guitarist Marty Lee, really powerful figure in the 80s. If you look at some of the pictures of him in the book, and if it's a good looking book, it's Marty's fault, because he is a career creative person. He's worked with advertising agencies for most of his life, and he's the one who laid out and designed this book, which I think is definitely the best looking book I'm probably ever going to be associated with.
Were you able to talk to all the guys in the band for the book?
I did. I talked to all of them repeatedly. And, you mentioned Donnie's, those clips that surfaced a couple years ago. When they performed that sold out concert, a few of those clips went online, and you see him, I don't want to say effortlessly, but he still can't hit the high notes the way that he was hitting them in the 80s. Bob Lefsetz, the good dude, industry pundit, got super excited by that and invited Donnie onto his podcast. And, in typical Donnie fashion, Donnie doesn't like talking about Donnie that much. So it was this big, high-profile, celebratory interview, and Donnie just didn't have much to say. And most of these guys don't have much to say. So if you've seen the documentary, there is a documentary about them. Doesn't get into that much depth. If you've heard Donnie on podcasts, all respect, he is a great storyteller. He can tell great stories about the band, but when you're asking him point blank about himself, he's a humble guy. So if you've seen them before in the documentary and interviews, in so many stories they've done, it's kind of like those are stories that have the band recording just one set of vocals on those. And by me having access to them over years and years, I was able to get something that is not just one vocal pass, but, as they do on their records, I was able to get 60 vocal passes. I was able to not just get the story, but come back to it and cross-reference it and ask questions again and again and again and again. And I think they got tired of talking to me eventually. But now, I mean, the book is 7, 8 years old. Now they've come around and they realize what a good thing it is that we were able to document so much of their history.
How much then do you think the fact that humble guy doesn't want to talk too much in interviews, maybe that plays a role in why they didn't have the kind of long-term success? Maybe you got to have that front man that wants to go out there and promote and do the interviews.
Yeah, I mean, to his credit, Donnie is not a self-serving, self-obsessed mofo.
Self-promoter.
Yeah, and that was part of it. I went into the book thinking, and it is really my experience when I play the band for people. They say, wow, this is good stuff. They should have been huge.
It is, yeah.
Going into the book, that was my thesis. Like, the Cruisers should have been bigger, and I believed that. But if probably the one thing I learned in 9.25 years of Catholic school is that life is not fair. So I went in thinking that the Cruisers should have been bigger, but by the time I was done with the book, I was amazed and impressed and flabbergasted at points that they managed to accomplish as much as they did with limited resources and the limited connections. I mean, as I said, like Donnie kind of has a #1 single, kind of not. The Cruisers sort of had a record deal, but not really. They made some videos, not big budgeted. They had a partner. It was always something. So these guys really overachieved for the modest amount of resources that they had and the modest connections that they did.
Find the Booked on Rock website at bookedonrock.com. There you can find all the back episodes of the show, the latest episode in video and audio, links to all of the platforms where you can listen to the podcast, plus all the social media platforms. We're on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X. Also, check out the Booked on Rock blog, find your local independent bookstore, find out all the latest hot rock book releases, and before you go, check out the Booked on Rock online store. Pick up some Booked on Rock merch. It's all at bookedonrock.com. DX Ferris, the author of The Story of Donnie Iris and the Cruisers. As you mentioned, this came out. Actually, I think the actual release date would have been in 2017. It came out.
This is a big book. It's essentially a 75 for 75.
There you go. Take a look at that sucker.
It coincided with Donnie's 75th birthday, and it just coincidentally wound up having 75 chapters. Because part of what I do with the books is whenever possible, I try to write a lot of short chapters so you can pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down, and not have to worry about where you are in it.
I just love that era, the late 70s, early 80s, the height of the AOR era.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they wrote perfect AOR radio-friendly songs, but songs that stand up. Leah, that song it's just a perfect pop rock song, I guess you could call it. It's a rock and roll song, but just so
yeah. I mean, call it what you will. Power pop.
Power pop.
Probably, I mean, if you're a Cheap Trick fan, that's probably the word for it. Classic rock. I mean, again, Pittsburgh is such a classic rock town, and Donnie is the guy that has gone the furthest in that arena of the classic rock arena.
Yeah,
but I intended it for it to be a small book, just something I was going to set up, bang out quick, 9 months, over 40,000 words, and then mutated into this gigantic coffee table book because there was just a lot of good stuff that I in my less humble moments, I like to think it mirrors their process because they're just so painstakingly creative. They will put. They never had much budget to record with, but they would spend the important thing. They would spend time on their records. They would never record a song with 4 tracks and say, that's good, or 20. They had to go all out. Many of these records have 120 tracks, and every 10 years, somebody will come around like Andrew WK, or I forget who's doing it lately. It's a woman artist, just has these incredibly produced, lush tracks that just echo, and they're stacked up for days and days and days. Donnie was doing that before it was cool. And when people do it now, generally the pop world reacts by saying, oh my God, the production, wow, the effort, 120 tracks. And they were doing 120 tracks when it was very, very, very time demanding. and not easy to do.
Yeah, let's get into some of the songwriting. Let's talk about that. We'll go to chapter 16, titled Bring On the 80s, Donnie's debut. Quote, 1979, the story of Donnie Iris and the Cruisers truly starts. After decades of practice and preparation, Donnie is at a critical juncture. He hasn't had a hit song for a decade. So now Donnie's 36 years old. So that's, in rock and roll years is up there. A year later, the first album is released. Back on the Streets comes out July of 1980. And on that album is a song called Leah, written by Donnie and Mark Avsek. There's a fake story and there's a real story behind the song. And you write about a 1981 biography that claims the song is about Donnie's second wife, Leah Iris Jones. Not true. In fact, the real story is far more complicated. What is the song really about?
Very complicated. Mark originally wrote it as a sort of homage in the style of a chant from The Wizard of Oz, kind of the oh wee oh that Metallica would later riff on. He just envisioned, he wrote a song about classic blunder, the Russians invading Afghanistan, and that's where the lyric "Here we go again" came from. And Aliyah just started off as a phonetic thing. It wasn't a girl's name. It was just a chant. Aliyah, something that was vaguely European sounding. And Mark eventually decided that set of lyrics was dumb and there was no point to it. But the way the Cruisers work is they don't really have demos. They just start building a song and building it, and they never restart over again with the intent to make a better version. They just keep honing their initial thing. So they had this huge rock track with the chant Aliyah on it. And Donnie says, I knew a girl named Leah. So all of a sudden it changes from a chant to a girl's name. And now we're still singing about her. And now women the world over are named Leah in honor of this song. In Pittsburgh, it's common to find people named Aliyah.
Really? Okay. Yeah. What a groove. And the guitar riff.
Massive. Yeah, that turned up in the Netflix adaptation of the comedy Wet Hot American Summer, when they turned it from a movie into a series, and they had to summon the quintessential spirit of 1981 on a budget. They licensed that track for it.
Wow.
Boy, does it feel 1981. But it's also timeless.
The Buddy Holly look, that came after Aliyah.
Yeah.
That's thanks to Mark.
Yeah. Donnie had always worn the Fortune 410 glasses, and eventually it became part of their branding, their visual identity. Donnie was part of a wave of guys like Elvis Costello that were showing you that it was in fact possible to rock a party and wear glasses. And eventually Donnie started forgetting about the glasses, and he had to be reminded to put them on. That's his one show business foible, the one superficial thing he does. Aside from that, he's famous for, literally mowing the lawn and then showing up to a gig and playing in his street clothes.
So they're non-prescription. I mean, they're just like, he can see just fine. He just wears them for the stage.
I think at this point, at 83, I mean, I'm 50.
He probably could.
I need some help. So
yeah, nowadays,
maybe.
Real
glasses at this point. They may be a little more functional. But, as you see him on the cover of the book, it's Donnie without the glasses. And I think that's a great picture. I mean, that's Donnie in front of a lot of people, and you're seeing him in a way that you've never seen him before. And that's what we tried to do with the book.
And a story behind the album cover to Back on the Streets, a connection to Donnie's Jaggerz days.
Yeah. At one point when Donnie was in the Jaggerz and they were going through one of their show band phases, they all had these yellow tuxedos, matching yellow tuxedos. And Donnie was a guy that, seeing Joe Cocker sing with a little help from my friends at Woodstock really put the zap on his head. They still sing his arrangement of that every single show. It's important to Donnie, and that's the kind of guy who Donnie was. So Donnie was going in a Woodstock direction, and his band are saying, we all need to have these yellow tuxes on, for the look, the brand, man, we got to do it. And Donnie hated that, and he I don't want to say complain. He was a team player. He would wear it on stage, but he didn't like it. And then years later, when they were shooting a relatively low budget video for Leah, they were looking around for things that could make it look distinct. And Donnie reached in his closet and found this yellow tuxedo. And then a few months later, the guys that he used to be in the Jaggerz with, that used to hear him complain about this yellow tux all the time, look up on MTV, and there's their guy wearing the yellow tuxedo that he used to complain about all the time.
Leah reached number 29 on Billboard. The follow-up album was 1981's King Cool, and that is the top 40 single, Love is Like a Rock. Let's talk about now, this is the recording process that you referred to. It all starts with Kevin Valentine's drum part. He told you the story behind the creation of the song. This is a classic old school analog era story.
Yeah, absolutely. Just coming up with the beat and working on it and building on it from there. And yeah, they were doing, obviously they didn't invent this kind of thing. Pink Floyd do it, but they would have, beats on tape running around the studio, literally running around mic stands and just in a primitive literal loop of tape.
They added layer upon layer, I think, on this one.
Just
didn't
layer
they?
upon layer.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, Donnie and the Cruisers' real big signature thing is their production. These incredibly lushly layered, like guitars stacked up 40 tracks tall. Donnie's vocals, you're doing 40 takes on the Christmas album, which I realized that the idea of a Christmas album from a classic rock band can be cheesy. But Donnie and Mark put together a version of the Hallelujah chorus that is nothing but Donnie singing it. I forget if it's 80 or 90 or 100, but it's all different Donnie Iris voices. Donnie recording all these different tracks, smashing them together, and his voice just gloriously rubs off against itself. And that's been their real calling card. Again, it's not something that takes the most money, but it takes time. And most artists eventually tap out. Who wants to do 120 vocal tracks? Well, Donnie maybe doesn't want to, but Mark has a vision for it. And Donnie trusts Mark, and Mark is usually right.
And Marty Lee's riff on guitar.
Absolutely.
Bow, now, 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 now.
Yeah, as Mark says in the book, Marty comes up with cool stuff. That's what he does.
Yeah, My Girl became his biggest hit on the Hot 100. Peaked at number 25. Sweet Mary Lee charted on the rock tracks, charted 31. Band had multiple charting singles. So why did they not reach arena level fame? At this point, they're stacking up the hits.
Yeah, they just simply were not connected. I mentioned their manager, the late great Mike Belkin. He is a guy that managed Joe Walsh. He managed Barnstorm when Joe Walsh's band was called that. He managed Tommy Bolin, managed Wild Cherry. He was generally not able. I managed the James Gang, when Joe Walsh was with him. He was not able to launch a lot of his bands directly into the stratosphere. So was he a great manager in that regard? Well, maybe not, but none of his guys are broke. Even guys like Donnie that had modest success, he took care of their money very well. He was able to steer them. He was able to mentor them and stop them from doing foolish things. So he maybe couldn't put them directly on the charts. He was able to put them up with a lot of good bands, get them on good tours. But, in the 1980s, frankly, there were not guys roaming the earth with baggies of cocaine in their pocket saying, hey, play the Donnie Iris record. And a lot of other big bands had that going for them. We're not naming names. We're just saying if you wanted to get your record played, it took a little bit of back scratching, and the Cruisers were able to call in favors, but they weren't part of the payola system.
Yeah, and that is not a stretch. That's true. That is what it was back in those days.
And when it comes to it, as I alluded to, the band did not truly have a major label deal. They had a production deal with a label that had a distribution deal with MCA. And you've probably heard this in your travels. We refer to it in the book. MCA would sign a lot of bands, but not do a lot with them. So the joke was that MCA stood for Music Cemetery of America.
Right.
And
Yeah.
one guy that I talked to in the book even turns it into a verb. Like, what happened to the Cruisers? They got MCA'd. They got signed to MCA and not much really happened to them. So they did not truly have a major label deal. So that even when they were doing well, they were not a huge priority for MCA.
Yeah, you cannot understate the importance of that, having that label backing you, putting money in to the tour, to the promotion, to the whatever, booking the band wherever you can book them to get some exposure. And without it, then you're left to just a grassroots type of thing.
Yeah, Jesse Jackson, whatever your opinion of him, Jesse Jackson just died. And I thought of a quote from around like 1996. Someone was grilling him about whether or not he was on the presidential ticket. They said, "Why aren't you? Why aren't you on the presidential ticket?" And he said, "Well, I'm not, but I'm qualified." And that's something I remember all these years later. And Donnie is a band that, Donnie and the Cruisers and Mark were not a band that was in the top 10. They were not in Hit Parader. They were not on all these big tours necessarily, but they were qualified. They had the stuff. Just you don't always get to be on the biggest stage doing the biggest thing. There is important work to do closer to home, important work to do other places. You don't always get to be the biggest star. They still won the lottery. It was just for a couple million, and that's like a guess. That's a figure of speech. I'm not talking about how much they made, but they won the lottery. It was just for closer to 2 million than 100 million.
They released The High and the Mighty in 82, Fortune 410 in 83, No Muss, No Fuss in 85. Never able to recapture that commercial success of previous singles. Were they also victims of changing radio formats in the mid 80s?
Yeah, it was a little bit of that. They got hit with a lawsuit that took a lot of their time and money at a critical juncture when they really should have been recording on the record, or concentrating on the record rather. Yeah, and then times were changing. It's interesting, around like 85, after their major label, not deal, but connection went away. A couple people made overtures to Donnie saying, listen, dump Mark, dump your partner. I know he's your guy, he's your boy, whatever. Nobody's not saying that's great, but you need to dump him and come out to Hollywood and be this kind of guy. And, we can keep you in the game, but you got to dump all your friends. And Donnie, to his credit, this is the kind of guy he is, realized that would be a foolish move. And he didn't want to stay in the spotlight at the expense of betraying these people that had made his success possible. He didn't want to leave his friends. And that turned out to be exactly the right move because, as you know, in 1985, 84, things were changing anyway. So I'm pretty sure if he would have dumped Mark, he would have wound up not more famous, we'll say.
Boy, you hear that so many times. You don't need those guys, man. You come with us, go solo. We'll take care of you, man. You got to get rid of those guys. And to his credit, like you say,
being a Pittsburgh Rust Belt kind of guy, he was able to smell that, and he knew.
Thanks so much for checking out the Booked on Rock podcast. If you've just found the podcast, welcome. If you've been listening, thank you so much for your support. And make sure you tell a friend, a family member, share on social media, and let people know about Booked on Rock. And if you do like the podcast, make sure you subscribe, give a 5-star review wherever you listen to the Booked on Rock podcast. We're on Amazon, Apple, iHeart, Spotify, Spreaker, TuneIn, and on YouTube Music. You can check out the full episodes on video, along with video highlights from episodes on the Booked on Rock YouTube channel. Find it at Booked on Rock. Thanks again for listening. Now back to the show. Many bands fade away. Cruisers, though, they kept playing for decades and became a hometown institution in Pittsburgh. What became of Donnie and the band after the 80s?
They got day jobs. Mark Avsek, again, the extraordinary producer, band leader, songwriter. He is now the intellectual property Batman. He's an attorney who specializes in international intellectual property. The Cruisers got hit with a some would say frivolous lawsuit. I can think of words that are less charitable than that. We're trying to keep it friendly. And by having such a terrible experience in the legal system, when the band did slow down, Mark went to law school and he had such a terrible experience with that. He thought, you know what? Never again. It's not going to happen to me. And if I can stop it, it's not going to happen to anybody else. So he's still involved in intellectual property across many different fields, but he's not just a rock and roll guy. I mean, if you have the patent to a blender and somehow somebody in China acquired your schematics and now they're printing bootleg blenders, Mark Afsek is the guy that you turn to for justice. So that's a big part of his daily life.
A 1981 lawsuit and a 2013 lawsuit, right? One was regarding Leah, and then in 2013, a lawsuit against Sony. The most significant was the $2 million lawsuit regarding Leah.
Yeah, that's the one that really stopped them in their tracks for a while.
Accused of plagiarism, but they won.
Yeah, it was, yeah, I mark now that he is an experienced attorney, readily calls it borderline frivolous. You know,
Mark Alton, a Detroit songwriter, said they copied his song "Here I Go Again."
Yeah, he claimed that because his contention was that he had submitted a song to MCA in Los Angeles, and because the Cruisers had that MCA connection, and because his song also featured the lyrics "Here we go again," which I think have been used somewhere between 40 and 50 million times in other songs, the judge, for whatever reason, let that go through. And Mark, because he's a guy of fierce integrity and pride, and not in a bad way, he just refused to settle the case. He wasn't going to let it go, so they just let it play out, and it cost them a lot of time, and it cost them a lot of money, and it wound up costing them all their Aaliyah money, but at the end, they were found not guilty of plagiarism, and he was able to walk forth with his head held high.
Yeah, and I wonder if they've
but it was worth it to him.
Sure. And I wonder if they've recouped that, because if they're both on, so they could both have songwriting credit on it. So publishing.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things where, you know, if they get money from MCA, they don't even think about it. You know, they every now and then people will ask them about, well, can we get it on vinyl? And the label Rock Candy did a great set of reissues a few years back, but people will ask the band about maybe get it on vinyl. And now that MCA is part of the Universal conglomerate, and they're such a relatively small band, you know, even somebody like Mark that understands intellectual property and corporate structures and governance has no idea where he would even begin to call at MCA to find out.
But, you know, if it's used in a movie or a television show or a Netflix series, they're going to cash in on it.
Yeah, I mean, that stuff is just little drops in the bucket here
Yeah.
and there. Sadly, you know, I've learned much about this, about being, you know, somebody that makes things, you know, certain things like music and books you can spend infinite time on, and they're just not going to recoup the money. You know, it has to be worth it just to make it exist.
What became of Donnie after the 80s?
No, so Donnie being an icon in Pittsburgh, people like him, and because he's a likable guy and he's a solid guy. Your people are always buddying up to him for this and that and the other thing. He met somebody who has connections in the financial world, and he said, you know, Donnie, you could be essentially a mortgage broker. And that's a very basic reduction of it, but he spent 20 years in the mortgage affiliated business and broker professional financial world.
All right.
Wearing a suit and tie.
Plays a gig here and there.
Yeah, playing.
How often does he play? A couple shows a year?
They play between half a dozen and a dozen. You know, the band have not gone a year without playing a song or without playing a show together since they formed. You know, that's over 45, 46 years at this point. Even the year that Marty had a heart attack on stage and almost died, they were still back within the year playing together.
Wow.
So yeah, they for a while they were obscure. It looked like they were over, but it's one of those things where the band just slowly accrued more cachet as time went on. They were playing state fairs, but as you know, that's not bad money.
No.
People laugh and go, "Oh, State Fair." Yeah, State Fair is the kind of gig that you want. And that's when Donnie really came into his own. He stopped feeling the obligation to act like he was a rock star. He would just literally show up, as we said, from having mown the lawn,
Yeah.
just his regular clothes, and just take the stage and sing the hits. And that became more and more valuable to people in the tri-state area as the years went on.
He had cancer, but thankfully beat it in 2023.
Yeah, shortly after, it's always like the shoe is always dropping with this band. They had that incredible sold out show, 5,000 people, their biggest solo show ever. At that late stage in their career, they were getting national attention. And right after that, Donnie's diagnosed with cancer. But that's not going to stop him. You cannot stop Donnie.
Hell no.
You can only hope to contain him. He paid the price for that. He, at that late stage in his life, he still had longer hair than you and me combined.
Yeah.
And that has fallen by the wayside. But he still looks, when what little I have up here is gone for good, I hope I look as cool as Donnie does.
The Booked on Rock podcast is part of the Boneless Podcasting Network. If you're a fan of classic rock and classic film like I am, go to boneless.lovable.app to find over 20 great shows there. That's boneless.lovable.app, or just go to bookedonrock.com, the Boneless Podcasting Network. It is what you want it to be. Listen with confidence. By the way, here's the image of the Christmas album. So, Alleluia, right? Alleluia. So is it sung to the same, like the same notes, chorus and all that of Leah?
No, that's just a running
Okay.
thing they have. When I get a minute here, and people in my immediate circles know that this is ridiculous, it's more like if I get a minute, but I'm going to launch a Donnie podcast, just a short series. Like,
oh, you are cool. Yeah, that'd be great.
I'm going to call it something to the effect of podcast.
Yeah,
just might be it. But I'll tell
cool.
you, I played a small, tiny, but important, I think, role in that Christmas album. I was writing a feature about Donnie's band leader. I was working for a Cleveland newspaper at the time, and he just happened to be starting work on that Christmas album. And I'm a big Christmas music guy. I love Christmas music. Don't get me started. And I talked to him, and I happen to have in the car I'm trying to make sure I'm being vague enough because I don't want to mock anybody or point at anybody. So I haven't even said the year. I took a classic rock band's Christmas album that they had recorded and they were very proud of, but it was basically them playing, like plugging in and playing Jingle Bells. And I gave it to Mark and I said, "You can't do this, man. Like, take this album, listen to it, and if this is what you're going for, like, don't. It's got to be you guys. Like, don't do this.
Why bother, right?
Yeah. And to his credit, he went way overboard on it, as we did with the book. Just spent a year just deeply immersed in these incredibly, like, creative and thoughtful and elaborate renditions of Christmas songs, old and new. And that could be the last Cruisers record we ever get. I mean, it's over 10 years old at this point, but it's amazing. If you like that kind of thing, they very much designed it so that people would pull it out every year. People would have a reason to come back and remember it. And now it's part of a lot of people's Christmas traditions.
Oh, that's cool. Let me see. I think it's in Spotify here.
It is.
Yeah, they got the 20th Century Masters in there. You got You Can't Live on Love. What's that?
That's a more recent single.
Okay.
After the whole record and album thing fell apart, they started dropping a song here and there, trying to see if it would catch on. And normally they don't, but what can you do?
And what's the song you said I should listen to again? Was it That's the Way?
That's the Way Love Ought to Be.
Love Ought to Be. Okay.
That's how I start the book. That's the one that when I was listening to Van Halen on the radio and Rush and this was playing, I just assumed they were three bands of equal stature.
Cool.
As I say at the beginning of the book, listen to it seriously. Note Al Britton's propulsive bass line. Donnie's pumped and passionate vocals, Kevin's smashing, crashing drums. Listen to it in the dark. I swear, Marty's guitar and Mark's keyboards will actually shoot sparks. No, flames. That's what we're talking about here. That song is why Donnie Iris and the Cruisers, it's them at their glorious best. But outside of Pittsburgh, it was not a big song. So the following 500 pages are why.
Okay, because the only two songs I've here in Connecticut, there's two songs that made the radio. Leah, obviously, and Love Is Like a Rock.
Yeah.
Those are the two. Two. All right. So that's it. I'm going to listen to, I guarantee you, because I was listening to the best of. I was going through them kind of quickly, though. I wasn't really investing into each and every song on that best of. And I will do that for you. I will, I promise I will listen to every.
Yeah, and and I'm not saying they're Van Halen, I'm not saying they're Led Zeppelin, but for a group full of mortal guys, they did really well.
Sure they did.
If all you listen to is their best of collection, it's an astounding collection of songs. It's diverse, it's meticulously crafted, really good stuff.
Yeah, love these stories. These are the underdog bands.
Yeah, a lot of stuff on their other albums not far behind. I mean, what we do in chapter 1 as we look at the metrics, the numbers, from 1980 to 1985, Bruce Springsteen had 9 Hot 100 singles, 9. Songs by Mark Avsek, 9. So in those years, he had as many top 100 songs as Springsteen did. Loverboy had 8. Night Ranger had 8. Thompson Twins had 7. Toto had 7. Van Halen had 7. And Donnie and the guys, 9. Now, obviously, in the next 5 years, Springsteen and Donnie would deeply eclipse the Cruisers. But the point is, again, is that when they were working at the height of their powers with incredibly limited resources, they fielded a very competitive project. And if you like rock and roll, if you like classic rock, if you like power pop, for my money, they are the great undiscovered 1980s rock band.
There you go. What a way to finish. And thank you for sending me this book. And by the way, also thank you for anointing me, because on the package, I come home from work and I'm looking at my mail like, oh, cool. Looks like, a book is mailed to me. And it says, to the king. Eric Sanders. I was anointed the king by you. That's quite an honor.
The idea that you read the books that you talk about on your talk show, like you can lose your union card for that. Nobody does that. Like you listeners, you don't understand how rare that is. It's amazing.
I was going to frame that package, but I'm a little, I just felt uncomfortable. So
you can. I'll send you another. Nobody, friends don't keep track of favors. But this is the 3rd time you've had me on, so I'll send you.
I had somebody came in. My landlord came in to have somebody make a repair in my apartment, and there was the package on the counter. I'm like, what does this guy must be thinking? Like, the fuck is this guy, the king? I could have explained. You don't understand. That's DX Ferris appointment.
So the cameos in this book, man, you have the guys working with the Jaggerz, Gamble and Huff, Wild Cherry, Breathless, Kiss, Bon Jovi, Pulse, Santana, Cellar Full of Noise, Sonny Geraci, Wolfman Jack, LaFlavor, Fair Warning, a young Trent Reznor.
Yes, there's a Trent Reznor story in there.
B. Taylor, the James Gang, and so many others. Rock and Roll Hall of Famers left and right.
It's a great story. It's an underdog band, but it's written. I've told you this before. I love because it's written in your voice, and I love that. And you clearly put in the time and the effort to really investigate and talk to the band members and get the full story. So those guys should be appreciative of that.
Big, thick, good-looking book. I can't. It's nothing. Look at the pictures. You don't even have to read it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And so you could go to Amazon, all the usual places. And where can people find you online if they want to reach out to you?
Just do a search for DX Ferris. Slayerbooks.com will get you to me.
DX Ferris, thanks, man. This was great. We wanted to do this and we made it happen.
You keep having me back, and I'm not sure why, but I'm not going to say no.
Keep writing those books, man. Keep writing those books, and you don't even have to come back on. We'll just find a reason to have you come back on. You're one of my favorite guests.
I will try to do stuff. Thank you.
All right, man. And
Really, Donnie Iris, check him out. A lot of good stuff there.
yeah, absolutely. All right, man. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's it. It's in the books.